everyone. Welcome to another episode of Circle City Conversations. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you to our sponsor, Hurst Limontes, an Indiana law firm with many years of experience helping injured Hoosiers. We are here today with a experienced trial lawyer from my office, Mr. Charles Hubley. Charles, thank you for being here.
It's great to be here. Thank you.
Charles is, this will be his second episode. Charles is a lawyer at the office of Hurst Limontes. He is a father and a husband and Johnny Lawsuit, as I like to call him. So, because he files probably more lawsuits than anyone else in the office, right?
You got to be quick on the draw, you know?
So, if you are an adjuster or a defense attorney listening to this and you sent us a shitty offer, chances are your response was a lawsuit.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
yeah.
Creates a lot of
Right.
a lot of opportunity for us and a lot of headaches for myself and Anna and everybody else.
It does. And, I just did it the other day. I filed suit on a smaller case. We're not afraid to file suit on smaller cases, because at the end of the day, it's all about getting as much as you possibly can for your client. We can't change what happened to you, whether it was something small or something big. It happened. We can't change it. We just get you money.
Well, and most lawyers won't file on those cases.
Right.
And the insurance companies know that, especially, the substandard companies, American Access for Chicago. They know that most lawyers just won't even file a lawsuit against them because of how much of a pain in the ass it is to deal with them.
Yeah.
So we do it, and we do it for our clients, and we do it to show them that we're willing to go what I call the miracle mile with them.
Right. I tried a case with Chase in October. We had an episode on it. The offer was $6,000 and the verdict was $17,000, which was probably what the case was worth. But we had to go try the damn thing to get there,
Which you wish they would just pony it up early on, but, at least you showed them that you're willing to go do it, and that's what it's all about.
So I remember this was many, many years ago. This was before you went to law school. When did you go to law school?
Started law school in 2010 down at the University of Miami.
So we're here. It's fireside chat here, and in a basement that you're very familiar with.
Yes.
That you've known since even before then, right?
Yes, absolutely. I didn't even think about that until you said that.
You were probably down here, having a few beers many years ago.
Yeah. I grew up in this same cul-de-sac. My parents' house I could throw a football and hit it from here. And my neighbor, who maybe I shouldn't put him out there right now. I won't put him out there. I won't put his name out there, but if you know me, you know who this is, because he is an attorney, and he is a mentor of mine. Probably one of my earliest mentors, along with my grandfather, who lived up in Carmel, Indiana. But this gentleman he's an attorney. He was a very successful attorney for a huge company that is headquartered here in Indianapolis.
Yes. And
he actually wrote a letter of recommendation for me to go to law school at the University of Miami. So shout out to that person.
Yeah.
And he not only a mentor, somebody who I worked with early on, one of the first people to give me a cash paying job. And one of those jobs is he would spend a lot of time in Arizona during the winter time, because we have the nasty winter months here in Indiana. So he would go and spend time in Arizona, and he lives there full time now. But when he would go, he would ask me to kind of be the caretaker of this place.
Yeah.
And, he also would leave me a case of beer or a few cases of beer, and that would, be part of my payment. And I would come over here and make sure the house was taken care of. He didn't want anybody coming in and doing things that they weren't supposed to be doing. And he said if you need to shelter from a storm or something in the basement, you can do that. So I
shelter from your parents.
Shelter from my parents. So I would come over here and we would keep watch of the place. So
how many times do you think you've mowed this lawn out here?
Oh, I don't know, hundreds.
And the next question is, do you think you can come back this spring and mow it again?
I don't know. I heard you've got a pretty good riding mower, don't you?
I do. If the damn tire keeps going flat, on it, but
it'll keep you busy though.
Yeah,
that's good.
Yeah, as if the 4 kids that I have don't keep me busy enough.
And the lawn and the leaves and
everything. So many leaves. Just an ungodly amount of leaves. More than anyone ever needs. So, so Chip, you work here. You work with me. We just got done. We got done talking with Tim Devereaux, and we talked a little bit about a case that we had all 3 of us had kind of worked on together. It was a gentleman that was hurt pretty badly, and so, and your paralegal, Anna, she's amazing. Does a fantastic job. She did a great job on that case. So, tell me a little bit more about that case in particular.
Sure. It was a catastrophic injury.
Yeah.
I mean, I had handled death cases leading up to that point. I had never handled a case with such a catastrophic injury. And, I don't want to say death cases are easy, right, but there's kind of a finality to them. And, there's kind of the damages are kind of finite to an extent because, the person's not here.
Right.
And really dealing with these catastrophic injury cases, I came to realize that, I mean, this is something this person is going to be dealing with for the rest of their life. And this was a young guy we're talking about.
Yeah.
So, those catastrophic injury cases they're just different. And, that was definitely the biggest case I had handled leading up to that point. And, I feel like I learned so much from working with Tim, who is just incredibly knowledgeable and just tireless. I mean, really, really, and tireless in his pursuit of the truth. And I mean, I'm sure it helps that he's done it like a million times, but I mean, it was a masterclass to watch him dice these people up in depositions.
Yes.
I mean, it really and they could tell, and the defense attorneys could tell that they just were in deep shit.
Yeah, they were over their head.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
100%.
It's so funny too. Tim and I talked about it earlier. We've litigated cases together, and they come in, and they've done it on in many occasions. So they come in with these arguments, and you're just kind of like, we knew you were going to say that. We knew that was coming. We're ready for it. What do you give us something better than that?
Yeah. If
you really want to try to get a discount today, give us something better.
Right.
So, yeah, that particular case was, I remember, I'll never forget, we were sitting in the room, and the doctor comes in and essentially tells the gentleman that he's never going to be able to walk again. Yep. Yeah. And then his wife starts crying, and then we all start crying. Everyone's crying, because it's just such a sad moment. And certainly he overcame that, which was wonderful to see.
Incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, I tell people about that case.
Yeah.
And the progression that he made from where I first saw him to where he was when we settled the case. And I mean, it's miraculous. It's nothing short. I mean, especially looking at his MRI results, the x-rays that were taken, the way his spine was, mangled and the way it looked, and then, what they were able to do. I mean, it's nothing short of miraculous.
Exactly. Yeah. So that was a case that we helped with the workers' compensation end. You do some mostly catastrophic workers' comp stuff.
Correct.
Yeah. The workers' compensation statutes here in Indiana, if you could describe them in a sentence, how would you do so?
Um, just wholly inadequate.
Yeah.
I mean, especially considering how much construction and, you look at the housing boom going on in and around the greater parts of 465, the highway that surrounds Indianapolis in general. And I mean, there's so much work going on.
Yeah.
There's so many buildings going up and apartments and townhomes and all these things. And, there's been an influx of people coming in from different parts of the country. And, this is a great place to live. And we have so much work going on. And we have this just like I said, wholly inadequate workers' compensation protection for people. I mean, it doesn't pay these people enough.
Yeah.
It really doesn't punish employers who have unsafe work sites or any type of unsafe work practice.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just really inadequate. It doesn't allow really for enough recovery for these folks when they get injured, because luckily in our case, this past case that we had both workers' compensation and we were able to find third-party liability on the general contractor and the subs. But that's not always the case. I mean, sometimes it's just workers' compensation, and I mean, it does not really fully adequately compensate folks when they're injured on a work site like that.
Yeah, absolutely. The one thing I've seen recently with these clients that are working with Instacart, DoorDash, these TNC services, Transportation Network Company under the statute, is that these companies are essentially purchasing this. It's not workers' comp. It's more of like an occupational type of insurance, but the last one I had, they only paid him 50% of his wages.
Right.
Yeah. And the worst part was, and you could probably shed a little more light on this. In Indiana, we've got kind of this like dual servant kind of rule, where, in a workers' compensation setting, for example, let's say someone has two jobs that are very similar and they're injured at one job, they could potentially be reimbursed their salary for both jobs, right?
Correct.
As long as the job responsibilities are similar.
Correct.
Yes. So, but unfortunately, a lot of these DoorDash drivers, Instacart drivers, are just doing this as a side gig, right?
Right.
And I had the same same situation in my case where he was driving for DoorDash, but his main job was essentially working at a warehouse. And so I was unable to kind of draw that comparison between those two types of jobs.
Yeah, not quite the same, right?
No. So in that case, he had permanent injuries, but he was hit by an underinsured driver. And because of that, our recovery is limited.
Yeah. I mean, at least I will say at least those DoorDash type companies, DoorDash or any of the other ones. Yeah,
they use apps to essentially employ people. They tell them where to go, how to get what to do.
But they're 1099 independent contractors.
They're independent contractors.
Right. They, you can't hold the company vicariously liable for their actions, but they're independent contractors. At least they have those protections.
Yes.
And so I don't know if all of them have that the third party administrator type of
occupational kind of insurance.
Right.
I haven't seen it with Uber. I've seen it with DoorDash and Instacart.
Yeah.
That's it.
And that I mean, for anybody out there who's doing DoorDash or Instacart or whatever, keep that in mind, because I mean, if you get it, I mean, when we have cases like that where we have folks who have been DoorDashing and they're in a catastrophic car crash and they suffer catastrophic injuries, and then by luck they're working for DoorDash and they do have some kind of protection, some kind of health insurance to look to.
Yeah.
To pay their medical bills, versus if you're there with one of these Uber Eats or something, they have no coverage for you.
Exactly.
So that's important.
We'll change gears a little bit. We talked to Tim a little bit earlier about he mentioned working on sex assault cases. I've worked on them. They're sad. You're working on one. You have a minor, which makes it even worse.
Yeah.
More difficult.
Yeah.
Tell me, as an attorney, how do you deal with, especially as a parent attorney, you're a parent of young children. You have little babies. And so, how do how do you reconcile that? How do you deal with those emotions where you've got a situation where you've got a client that was sexually assaulted, but you've got children that are roughly about the same age?
It's tough. It is. It makes me more vigilant. I can tell you that much.
Yeah.
I mean, it's bad enough that I spend my days suing big companies for doing bad things. And then, something like this happens and you have a company who you're alleging has done bad things or has, made it seem, just has totally dropped the ball in protecting a minor. And it makes you more vigilant. And you really do it for the child. I mean, the sad thing is all we can do is, for the most part, get the child some kind of compensation. Unfortunately, to an extent, you can't put a gun to the company's head and say, you guys have to change what you're doing. But you hope and pray that you doing your job and holding them accountable will force whatever company did what they did to change their protocols, change their rules, and not let something like this happen again. I mean, that is really what we're in this to do, right? Is to change the patterns of these companies and these stakeholders so that they go, we cannot let this shit happen again.
Yeah.
Like, for not only for our financial reasons, but for our ethical and moral reasons, we should not let this happen again. And, at least this guy's trying to hold us accountable. So I'm sure they don't look at it that way. They look at it as, oh no, we got to write a check. Yeah. But I mean, you hope
money,
right? And I mean, and Katie Karras is working with me on that case, and I mean, she's just done an exquisite job of taking depositions and holding people accountable. Yeah. And I mean, and
not surprising.
Yeah, she's a bulldog in depots, and she's all the credit to her. She's gone after them and with vigilance, because it's not fair, and you got to hold these guys accountable. You can't let them just walk away.
Yeah, it's so, even for us as lawyers, we tell juries, like, it's the golden rule, right? Don't break the golden rule. Don't put yourself in their shoes. Jurors are going to do it. Yeah, they do it anyways,
right?
But I feel like we're the biggest perpetrators of all. Like, we all do it, we do it. We see something bad like that happen, and then we probably think of ourselves, our kids, our family.
Yes. And
what would we want for someone else to do for us if we were unable to do it for ourselves?
Right.
So, those cases, like I said, we've worked on them. We talked to Tim Devereaux earlier. His firm does an excellent job working on those type of sex assault cases. And so they are very, very tough and so emotionally charged,
for everybody, the family, you as the attorney, the family wants questions answered, and you can't always answer them right that second. I mean, because you're still figuring things out. You're still uncovering the layers of the stinky onion that I like to call, and and I think Tim mentioned something about there's always a smoking gun somewhere. I mean, if you ask for it, you eventually will find that smoking gun. And I tend to agree with him. I mean, and it's not a good thing. I mean, no, it's not a good thing, but usually
be there.
If it's, right. It shouldn't be there, but eventually you ask the right questions, you'll get to the stinkiest part of the onion, and you'll find that smoking gun.
Yeah. Yeah. You came here, you're originally from Indiana. You went to law school down in Florida, right?
Correct.
University of Miami.
Go Hurricanes.
Go Hurricanes. I can condone that because I'm originally from Miami.
Yes. You should absolutely condone
it. So, and I was talking earlier how I remember meeting with you at Sam's place on 65th Street.
Uh-huh.
Do you remember that?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You were ready to go to law school?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. And you ended up working at a personal injury law firm working for a Cuban lawyer.
I did.
At a personal injury law firm.
I did.
And then you moved up to Indiana, and you're working at a personal injury law firm for a Cuban lawyer.
Yeah. I've got a niche. I don't know what to tell you. I've got a niche.
So, trying cases down there in Miami. I know you tried even in Miami Beach. Didn't you try some cases down?
Well, so the Miami Beach courthouse. The Miami Beach courthouse is a satellite courthouse.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's a really nice courthouse. It's like super cold too. Like, the air, Miami, like the air conditioning is crazy. Yeah. They just pump in the AC. The pump in the house music and the AC down in Miami. So, but I never tried a case at the Miami Beach courthouse because it was a satellite courthouse. We always did it at the Miami, the proper Miami courthouse, downtown Miami. Yeah. So they would always move it there because they've got the big, stained glass windows and stuff like that. And
how many jurors do you get? 12 or 6?
You get 6.
6. That's odd. I thought Indiana was one of the few states where I saw 6. So many of the other states I saw have been 12. So you and last year, since we last spoke on the podcast,
I'm just going to say I haven't tried a case down in Miami for like 6 years. So it could be. I could be wrong.
So the last time we spoke on the podcast was before you tried case down in not southern Indiana, but kind of southern-ish Indiana, down in Columbus.
Yeah.
So what would you say is some of the bigger differences that you saw down there versus in Miami?
Well, definitely the makeup of the folks on the jury. I mean, you're gonna have Cuban folks in Miami, Haitian folks, people all around the Caribbean, typically sitting on your jury. And here in Indiana, you're going to have a different makeup of folks,
right?
Especially when you get closer down to southern Indiana.
Right.
So, political proclivities, they're going to be a little bit different. I mean, I can say it. I mean, folks in Indiana are a bit more conservative than they would be in Miami. Jurors are going to look at money a lot more different in Miami than jurors here in Indiana would look at money. I mean, right. I would say that a $100,000 verdict here in Indiana is probably a big verdict. I mean, people would look at that as that's a lot of money, and it's just the fact of the matter is in Miami, people would probably look at that as just a middle of the road verdict, not a big verdict. And that's something that when I moved up here, I really had to come to terms with because, I was, you're used to seeing these huge verdicts down in Miami and big attorney's fees, findings, and all these things. And I had to kind of temper my expectations when I got up here. And it's not a bad thing. It's just the way of the world, and it's geographic differences.
Did you ever do any appellate work down there?
Did I ever do any appellate work? I don't think I did. I don't think I worked on any appeals down in Miami.
No.
I know that we had cases that jury verdicts that they, insurers, I know for a fact State Farm was saying, we're going to appeal this and we're going to do this if you guys don't settle it this way. And
right.
We ended up settling it, but they never appealed it. But yeah.
And however, you have done some appeals work here. Right.
Yes, very recently.
LA,
very recently, working with the ITLA. Yes, I've been working on an appeal that's still pending right now. I don't think it was appealed from the trial court in Hamilton County. A 3-judge panel here reversed the finding of the trial court in Hamilton County and sent it back to the trial court in Hamilton County and said that no, you are not going to grant a 12B6 motion to dismiss on this, and you need to go back and allow the parties to do some discovery. And the defense is trying to take it up to the Supreme Court of Indiana right now, and they have not ruled on it yet. Have not accepted it yet. So I guess we'll see. But
yeah,
I didn't know I was going to be dealing with a case potentially going to the Indiana Supreme Court when I signed off to do it. But here we are.
That's what I said when Tim came and asked me about Escamilla to come help him. I didn't think I'd wind up in front of the Supreme Court, and Next thing I know, I'm up there like a deer in headlights, arguing in front of them.
Well, it'll be exciting if we get up there. That'll be exciting.
So, and that particular case, that is an interesting case, right?
Absolutely.
Because of what happened in that case. Tell me a little bit more about what happened.
Right. I won't get too deep into it
Right.
because I can get hyper technical, but I won't do that. Essentially, a very large parcel distribution company here in Indiana, who also, we were talking about independent contractors previously, who also employs a lot of 1099 what they call independent contractors. And to make a long story short, a gentleman was going to a distribution center here in Indiana as a 1099 employee, independent contractor, and he was completely confused as to how he was supposed to get into this distribution center, because the signage was telling him one thing, his GPS was telling him another, the distribution center had told him a completely different thing, and he was very confused. So he ended up getting out of his truck, and he was hit by another company or another contractor that was going a different way. And he passed away, unfortunately. So his estate sued, and come to find out from different sources that this exact scenario had occurred on the exact same road, almost in the exact place, like a month before this.
Oh, wow. And
the company that was sued said basically, well, we had no idea this was going to happen. How could we foresee that this was going to happen? And the case law in Indiana is always talking about foreseeability and how could we see that this was foreseeable? And it's like, well, it happened a month before this happened. So how are you guys suggesting that it wasn't foreseeable? And apparently there had been all kinds of there were statements about this happens all the time. People have to stop and get out and ask for directions and try to figure this out. So it's just very it's kind of insane for this company to suggest, hey, we had no idea this was going on, when this had happened a month before and people had been making comments about how it was very difficult to figure this out. So that's where the case is right now. In Hamilton County, it had been filed, and the court had dismissed it, saying that it was completely there was no foreseeability here, and had not allowed the parties to do discovery. And the appellate court, thankfully, said no. We're going to let the parties do some discovery, and we're gonna let the case go forward. So we're just waiting to see what the Supreme Court is going to do now.
Yeah, and that was going to be my next question for you was, the motion, the type of motion they filed. It's a 12B6 essentially, before even any kind of discovery or anything can be done, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So it's like, I remember I was there, I was watching you guys argue, and I can't remember. I leaned over and said something to someone, but I was just like, they're trying to keep something from you.
Yeah, that's
just my I don't trust any corporate defendants, but
right. There's got to be a paper trail, a data trail, and I think there's probably people within the company structure who are like, well, yeah, we knew about this. I mean, it was a thing. We saw them out there every day, stopping right in that area, trying to figure out how to get into here. So, and I mean, I don't. From a judicial perspective, I was looking at it like, I mean, how do you not let them go do discovery at least? I mean,
right.
I mean, in my mind, it's like you could have an employee say, well, yeah, we were negligent, or yeah, we knew about this. And that kind of negates the entire argument of the defense. But we didn't even get there because the court dismissed it. So it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And I mean, from a defense standpoint too, it's, well, maybe they need to do some discovery or whatever. It's not fair. You got to allow the parties due process. I mean, that's what we're in this. That's what we've sworn to protect. In taking our oath, right? Is due process, even for the defendants, but even for us. You have to allow us due process and allow us to do our discovery. So
exactly. Yeah, I totally agree. So I want to go back to that trial that you had tried last year. What was I know there was a comparative fault allocation and issue there. What was like the biggest surprise when it came to that for you?
Well, that was my first case. That was my first trial where fault was an issue.
Yeah.
Because every other case that I tried, it was under the No Fault Act in Miami, in Florida. So that's a different animal. But it was really interesting because the defendant testified that she had a protected green arrow. Basically, she had a turn left, a green arrow to turn left, and obviously it would be her right of way if that was the case. But it didn't make any sense because not only did our client testified, yeah, I mean, I had a green light. It was a stale green light. I watched it turn green, and it was a stale green, and I was going through. And she turned in front of me, and our client T-boned her, essentially. But we had an independent witness who had, I told the jury, she has no skin in the game. She has no interest in this trial other than telling her story and what's the truth. She was right behind our client, and she said he had a stale green light. I was going through the light too. I was right behind him. I was going to go through too. Yeah. And I barely, when she turned in front of us, I barely missed hitting him. So we had an independent witness with no skin in the game who testified that this guy didn't do anything wrong, and the jury still put fault on him.
Wow.
And I mean, I don't know what else I could have done. I mean, I guess I could have, there's always something, I suppose, but they still put some fault on him. And I don't know if maybe they felt bad for her. I mean, she cried on the stand, and maybe she felt bad for her or something, but I mean, it doesn't make any sense to me.
Right.
It's baffling.
Well, it's just one of those things no one ever, we tell our clients all the time, you don't know what a jury's going to do. No one does.
Well, that verdict is hanging in my office, and I point to that. I mean, clients are in there, and they're like, well, I think we got a great case for trial. And I say, I do too. But I just want to remind you, and I tell this story. I tell this story about the trial, and I'm like, they gave her fault. They gave my guy fault, and it just doesn't. I had all the evidence was in my favor, and they still put fault on him.
Right.
And it wasn't a lot. I mean, it was like 10 or 15% or something. But still, it cuts into your verdict, and you just don't know what these juries are going to do. I mean, it's really tough because you just don't know what they're going to do.
Yeah. The another area of law, another kind of practice area that you've been doing some work in, especially since you even started with me back when you were a law clerk, was we call them negligent security cases. They could be premises cases. They could not,
Right.
Really depends on the situation. So tell me a little bit more about some of those cases that you're working on.
Those are very interesting. You have you kind of have a tandem investigation going on. You have typically the investigation of whatever police department is involved in the incident. And I mean, the ones that I've worked on have been they're murder cases. I mean, they're cases where someone has been shot on a premises, and we're trying to figure out who did it. Some of these cases, as you're well aware, Alex, some of these cases they get the guy, they get the perpetrator, and they're in prison, and you could point to them and say, that's who did it, and and the defense is going to argue, well, they acted alone, and it's their fault, and how are you going to blame us for this? And we have to dig and find that smoking gun, which you do enough digging, you find it. And then there's the defendant, the premises, and they're going to say they didn't do anything wrong, but we always know that they do. There's something going on there. So, but then there's cases where they don't know who the defendant, they don't know who the murderer is. Somebody's accused of it, but the charges get dropped, or they never find out who it is, and there's not surveillance footage of who it is, and so on and so forth. So that there's this tandem. There's our investigation where we're going and taking pictures and hiring investigators to figure out what's going on and look into witnesses and get witness statements, and then there's the police. So all the cases I've had have dealt with a death, a murder. So I typically open an estate, which you have to do. You have to have a legal entity that can then file a lawsuit. I use the estate to send subpoenas to the police departments who aren't, for the most part, I think have been pretty forthcoming with information for us. Yeah. And I think you even had a detective on that worked on one of the cases that we were involved with previously.
He was on the podcast.
So, and, I think that was IMPD, and IMPD has been very forthcoming. You have to let them do their investigation. They're not just going to hand things over because they have a criminal investigation to wrap up and make sure that they have the evidence to convict for. But some are not as forthcoming, and, that's okay. But you send them a subpoena, and you send a subpoena to the prosecutor's office as well, and sometimes the prosecutor is willing to give you information, but you have to do this. It's a tandem investigation, so the police are doing it, and then you're doing it, and invariably the premises is gonna tell you they didn't do anything wrong, and they had no idea that this was going to happen, and how could they know, and how could they know that somebody had a gun, and the case law here in Indiana is pretty tough for premises cases involving criminal acts. You've got to show kind of some premeditation. You've got to kind of show a buildup of aggressive behavior, and that it can't just be one thing happens, a year before, or any type of criminal act on the premises a year before, or anything like that. It has to be a buildup of events so that there's proper notice to the defendant premises owner that something's going to happen here, and you gotta dig and find the evidence. So I've got one right now up in northern Indiana that I'm working on. That we know who the perpetrators are. Luckily, we were able to get an evidence preservation letter out, and we were able to get surveillance footage showing pretty much exactly what happened. And we think we've got a good case to show that premeditation, that kind of buildup of aggressive behavior that led to this really tragic incident. So
it goes back to case law talks about the foreseeability,
right?
Yeah, and there's a bunch of steak and shake cases here in Indiana that discuss premeditation, things leading up to as you said, leading up to the event that caused the injuries. So yeah, very, very tough cases here in Indiana.
Very tough, and a lot of pressure, because it's like I've got an estate, and the beneficiaries of the estate are going to be young children, and I just it's like I keep getting rolled into it with cases involving kids who are either victims or who would be the beneficiaries if the case resolves, or if a jury verdict comes back in our favor, and it's just like, it's a lot of pressure to make sure you perform and get the best result for the kids, because those are who are going to benefit from it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Chip, thank you so much. I really appreciate you being here today for our dying fireside chat.
I talked it to death. Look at that.
Right. So thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate it.
So thank you, everyone, for listening to another episode of Circle City Conversations. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on more future conversations.